Girls were sacrificed. Girls were sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Today we are going to talk about a serious topic, okay? It might be a little controversial. Maybe not. Maybe in this day and age, people are finally starting to have a little bit of common sense. We'll see. Let's get into it. My daughter was born into a family with deep roots. Roots in Venezuela, in Spain, in Italy, and the United States. And like many mothers, I think about something that no law, no global treaty, no economic forecast can provide her. And that is a sense of belonging. I don't want her to grow up in a world that treats heritage like a burden. I want her to carry it like a crown. But increasingly, that desire to pass something meaningful down is seen as suspicious, dangerous even. And that really bothers me. We're living through one of the most dramatic demographic shifts in history. Mass immigration, hyperglobalization, and cultural flattening are reshaping entire nations in real time. In the UK, ethnic Britons are already a minority in several major cities, including London, Birmingham, and Leicester. In the US, it's projected that by 2045, white Americans, the people that made this country what it is, will no longer be a majority. In Sweden, native Swedes under the age of 15 are already a minority in many urban areas. This isn't just about the numbers, okay? This is about meaning, because when a people become a minority in their ancestral homelands, maybe you don't agree with the United States because that's a whole different topic, but for the most part we can agree that Swedish people are ethnically from Sweden, right? Okay. When people become a minority in their ancestral homelands, the culture doesn't just change, it dissolves. The holidays become corporate, the food becomes commercial, the language becomes mechanical, culture becomes nothing more than a costume, and people become rootless. And when people are rootless, they're easier to govern, they're easier to manipulate, and they're easier to sell to. They're disconnected from the past and they become directionless in the present. This is especially dangerous for women because women are the memory keepers of a people. We are the ones who pass down more than just DNA. We pass down meaning. It's not just about genes, it's about lullabies in your grandmother's tongue. It's about first communions, it's about quinceañeras and Sunday dinners. It's about remembering who you are. And here's something wild. If a woman stops speaking her mother tongue, that language disappears from her family in 2 generations. When women disconnect from their roots, entire civilizations forget themselves. And that's exactly what's happening. We're told it's progressive to forget, that it's inclusive to erase. But who benefits from that erasure? Certainly not us. Let's be honest about the hypocrisy. When Native Americans or the Maori in New Zealand or the indigenous Amazonians fight to preserve their ethnic and cultural identities, which they should, we cheer. We celebrate them for resisting cultural colonization. We say, yes, keep your heritage alive. But when Europeans do the same thing, certainly it's racist. Certainly it's fascist. Why? Why is it noble to protect some heritage, but bigoted to protect others? Isn't every culture worth preserving? And are we really saying that only certain peoples are allowed to exist, to remember, to belong? There's something quietly devastating about watching a civilization unravel in real time, especially when you know it's women and girls who will bear the brunt of it. Western women are waking up to something they were never prepared for, because for the past 30 years they were told that multiculturalism is a virtue, that diversity is a strength, that all cultures are equal, that noticing differences is racist. But now they're seeing the truth in real time, on their streets, in their schools, in the crime reports. And the truth is, not all cultures treat women the same. It's one thing to say that every culture has value or something valuable about it, but it's another thing entirely to pretend that all cultures, all cultural values are compatible with Western freedoms, especially when it comes to women. The West has spent centuries fighting for the idea that women are not property, that women deserve education, freedom, bodily autonomy, and protection under the law. So what happens when large groups of men come from cultures where women are not seen that way, where victims are blamed instead of supported, where girls are married off at 14, where modesty is enforced with violence, and where a woman alone in public is asking for it? That's not just a different perspective, okay? That's a clash of civilizational values, and women are the collateral damage. Let's talk about something even more uncomfortable, because this isn't just about culture, it's also about safety. Because not all cultures are good for women. I'm going to say that again. Not all cultures are good for women. And when mass immigration brings in large populations of men who view women as property, who view women as not human, who do not believe in female autonomy or consent or even girlhood as sacred, we should be allowed to talk about it. And yet, when European girls are groomed, assaulted, or as they were in the Rotterdam scandal in the UK, where over 1,400 girls were exploited by predominantly Pakistani gangs, the media barely flinched. They said nothing, barely. And why? Because officials were afraid of being called racist. Girls were sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. In Sweden, once known for gender equality, rates of violence have skyrocketed in recent years, with clear correlations to migration patterns. Yet, even discussing that risks being labeled as far-right conspiracy theorist. Let me ask you, how is it progressive to stay silent when girls are hurt? How is it feminist to accept cultures that don't see women as fully human? This isn't about hate, it's about reality. Because if we pretend that all value systems are equal, women will continue to suffer, and no one will speak for them. The moment you point this out, you're labeled racist, you're Islamophobic, you're xenophobic. But let's be honest, Western women have always spoken up about global misogyny when it happened over there. African girls deserve education? Of course. Saudi women want to drive? Absolutely. When that same worldview shows up in your city, in your neighborhood, suddenly you're not allowed to speak. You're told to respect other cultures, even if those cultures do not respect you. There's real consequences to this. In Germany, for example, women were en masse on New Year's Eve in 2015. Most of the attackers were recent migrants. Authorities tried to downplay it. In Sweden, their statistics skyrocketed, and women were told not to wear short skirts or walk alone at night. In England, young girls were by grooming gangs in towns like Rotterdam for years, and officials ignored it, afraid of being called racist. That's not about skin color. This is about women's safety, okay? Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The people most in touch with their heritage are harder to control. They resist propaganda better. They remember stories and rituals and moral anchors that give them dignity and strength. They care about what they inherit and what they leave behind. That's why culture is under attack, not just by accident, it's by design. Because a world of disconnected people, of cogs in a world, is a world of obedient consumers. A world without memory is a world without resistance. One day, my daughter will ask me who she is, and I want to be able to tell her that story. I'm going through the very, very annoying bureaucratic process right now of getting her Spanish citizenship. I want her to be proud of her ancestry, not a generic, globalized script, but something true and rich and proud. I want her to know her people. Now, the current Spanish government and how they're working hard to destroy the country, well, that's quite another topic. But I want her to feel her roots. Not because they're better than anyone else's, I mean some, but because they're hers. And I want that for every woman watching this too. Not just the right to exist, but the right to remember. And I know that some of you might be thinking, isn't it hypocritical coming from me? After all, my daughter is being raised in the US. Her mother tongue will be Spanish, and three of her 4 grandparents have Spanish and Venezuelan heritage. She'll even have a Spanish passport, and I get that. But here's the thing. This isn't about being 100% against marrying cross cultures, about individuals who, like my family, span borders, or people who happen to move to a different country. That's happened throughout history. What we're seeing now isn't that. It's not organic. It's a mass top-down engineered shift. It's the scale of it, the speed, the way elites promote the erasure of European identity while simultaneously protecting and celebrating the ethnic preservation of everyone else. But that won't last long enough. That won't last. That's just for now. The European identity is under attack. When that's done with, it'll be everyone else. This is just a temporary way to just attack the European identity. It's not the act of cultural blending that's the issue, because a small amount of that has always happened. No, it's the forced and strategic dissolution of nations, identities, and roots, and that should concern everyone. Now, with that said, let me know what you think in the comments. Cheers, and see you next time.